musician Tailor's Twin Chevie.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome back to the Tailor's Talk podcast, live here at Grand Entertainment Studios, home of musician Tailor LLC. I'm your co-host, Chevy Revis, along with my co-host and co-founder, Darrell Twin Smith.
What's up, y'all?
Today's super special guest is a top recording engineer, music producer, business owner, tastemaker, and DJ with decades of influence and experience in the music business.
That sounds so good.
We ain't finished. His talent has put him on some of the most prominent ATL stations like B103, 88.5 WRAS, and WHTA Mix Weekend. In 1993, he opened his very own record store called Earwax, which became a staple and landmark in the city of Atlanta. As a recording engineer, he's engineered sessions for legendary acts like Regina Bell, Glenn Jones, and Tony Terry, just to name a few. Please help us welcome to the show. Hailing all the way from Queens, New York. Queens, get the money.
Please get the money.
By way of ATL, the living legend, DJ Shabazz.
What's happening? What's happening? How y'all doing?
Yes, sir. Yes,
What's
sir.
happening?
What's happening, man?
It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, sir. It's man, it's your resume is something serious.
Yeah. We've lived a couple lifetimes, man, you know. It's I'm just glad to still be around to have the opportunities to do things like this. You know what I mean? Because it's a lot of that stuff, a lot of the accolade stuff, were things that I did in my 20s, my 30s, but to still be active and on the scene in the 50s is a blessing I can't even speak on. So, I'm just grateful because a lot of folks really have not made it. You know what I mean? So,
Yes, sir.
So yeah, and now I'm here on the Tailor's Talk podcast.
For sure.
It's great.
So it's definitely a pleasure, man. I think a lot of I don't think you really understand how it was a pleasure. When everybody know this man, he got many hats. He wears many hats. And the things that, he's just not in the entertainment. He gonna make sure, he's a bona fide electrician.
Oh yeah.
And it was a pleasure he's one of my instructors. And another instructor told me who you was.
Okay.
And
Is
so,
that what it was?
that
was
man,
it?
Yeah, it was Lions.
Okay.
Lions,
Okay.
because when Lions, he said, "Oh man, you do music."
Mhm.
He said, "Man, Shabazz do music." Then he said, "Man, hold up, let me pull up this clip." So when you was at Georgia State, when you was speaking at Georgia State,
Yes.
he showed me that. I said, "Oh man, that's dope."
Dang, I didn't even know he knew about that clip.
Yeah,
Might have
he
to
went to
keep-
YouTube.
Might have to keep him on payroll.
He went to YouTube and showed me. I said, "Oh man, that's dope."
Damn.
And then so that's when he showed me. That's when I walked over to your class and I said, "Man, I didn't know you do music."
Yeah.
And so then that's when I told you about the Tailor Talk podcast, and you didn't hesitate. You said it'll be a pleasure.
Of
and
course.
I definitely appreciate that.
Well, the thing is that number one, with all of the attention on hip hop, being in its 52nd year now, there are all kinds of stories that go on, and a lot of times the people who, like me, were responsible for doing a lot of stuff, but still were the ones who were in the jungles with the weed whackers, while folks have come behind us and been able to profit off of the work that we've done. We tend to get forgotten about, even though it wouldn't be a scene, if we were not active as we were then. So, like I said, a chance to get out here and talk some smack and, share some stories, as well as hopefully be able to inspire is what I live for. It's part of how I even got into education in the first place. You know, um, After doing tutoring and when I was working at Sam Ash, they had this program where they wanted to uh, bring customers into the store. So they would offer free Pro Tools classes on Saturday mornings, and I would teach the classes. It was Pro Tools. We taught Ableton, and I taught people how to DJ. You
That's
know,
dope.
and it was real basic, but if you stuck with me for the 4 weeks, you would definitely have a little bit better understanding in terms of what we were doing here. You know, and so I've always liked working with folks. I like to see the light bulbs go off. You know what I mean? And for me to not only have to transition careers when things started going crazy with the music business, be able to spin into something that I've already been doing and already love, and then through the certifications and getting my associate's degree, going down the actual electrical path and just basically reinforce everything that I've been doing all my life anyway. Through sound and music and recording. I mean, it's all electrics.
Yeah.
And it's all electricity. And if we learn one form, it's easy to segue into the next form. You know, so yeah, once I got my degrees and everything, I went out and started hitting the road, and then I always stayed in touch with Mr. Williams at the school, who's now the supervisor of the electrical department. And I was telling him I'm getting ready to come off the road, and he was like, "Man, come on over here and teach these classes. You know what to do." And I was like, "Teach." It's like I don't know if I want to teach, but that has honestly brought me more joy than anything I've been doing in the music business. You know, um, Being able to really connect with people on that one-to-one basis, and be a source of not just inspiration, but to be able to celebrate with your students as they continue on their path. To be a part of somebody's life like that. I mean, that's a great feeling. So almost got teary eyed at the graduation in May. Like like, oh man, hold up, you guys aren't supposed to be getting me like this. But yeah, I mean, it's a you know we should be lifetime learners. You
I
know,
agree with you.
and but in order to be a lifetime learner, in order to be a teacher, you have to be a lifetime learner. You have to be willing to um, accept that you don't know everything, and to always put yourself into situations where you are constantly learning and learning from the people around you, learning from the situations that you're in. I mean, it's all a part of life, man, and I'm here to live. So, I'm always seeking that next experience. You know what I mean?
I agree with you, man. Like this what for electrical for me,
Hmm.
I treat it like signal flow.
Mm. It's
That's
totally signal flow.
Cause I'm in 103 right now.
Okay.
And this
Ohm's
last week I
law.
was sitting there, I was
Yeah.
like, I said, this reminded me of signal flow.
Yeah.
And so it clicked with me
Yeah.
just like that. I was like, I said, okay, it do. And then like last week we was talking about hertz and stuff
Yeah.
like that, and
Frequencies.
sound waves and
Yes.
stuff like that. The saw, the tooth, and I'm like,
Mhm.
okay.
Right. This is
It's-
stuff I already know.
And so it really click. And
Yeah.
then they were like, so some of the other students were like, man, how you get this? I said, man, it remind me of music. And so then it stuck with me.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I was frustrated them first
Oh
2
yeah,
weeks.
no, man. Listen, learning about series parallel resistors and voltage drops is terrible. But it's the one thing that ties everybody with electricity in their job title together.
Yeah.
The electrical engineer are the ones who design the system. the electronic technicians and electricians are the ones who install it. The electronic repair technicians make sure that all of these circuits and stuff like that. I'm sorry, I thought I turned that down. That all of those things, stay working the way they're supposed to.
Yeah.
So, and the one thing that binds us all together, regardless of what electrical path we go down, is the Ohm's law. So once you learn, E over IR is like,
Yeah.
okay, you can't, you can figure out anything,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So man, you from the infamous Queens, New
Yeah,
York,
yeah.
Queens Bridge.
Quiet
You know,
Queens, as they
you
used to
got
call it,
Roxanne Shante, you got Nas,
Nori.
Man, it's
50.
amazing.
Marley
Nicki.
Marr. So the
Run
thing is,
DMC.
MC Shadi.
Shadi.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Kings from Queens.
So it's you coming from a city where it's a lot of dope talent, a lot of legends.
Mhm.
The one thing, what brought you to music growing up in Queens?
Well, my musical journey started, while I was in the womb. My mother was a dancer. She performed with an African dance company. Pearl Primus was the lady who led the company. She started off as one of Pearl Primus's dancers. Um, Pearl Primus is famously known for doing the choreography for "Strange Fruit,"
Oh, okay.
the Nina Simone song. Is that Nina Simone? Oh shoot, "Strange
Yeah.
Fruit."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I
Nina.
got that.
I knew
on
that
that
name.
album
I
up
knew that
there.
name sound familiar though.
So,
Yeah.
and then my father was
Primus.
was a percussionist. He was performing with a gentleman by the name of Babatunde Olatunji and the Drums of Passion. They made the first international music album for Columbia Records, and they came out. Drums of Passion album came out in '56. So, I literally was in the womb on stage. So music, I mean, there wasn't a time that music wasn't in the house or wasn't a part of my life. What started my journey, kind of, I think, was maybe um, my father encouraged me to play instruments. So, you know, clarinet and saxophone and, through school music programs and stuff, he wound up, purchasing my first sax. Um, but in terms of when it clicked for me that this was going to be my thing, was, sneaking into a friend's house um, and into his brother's room who had DJ equipment. And that, I mean, when I discovered the turntable, two turntables and a mixer, it was like, I couldn't imagine myself doing anything else, And when we finally got busted, Mustafa came home one day and was like, yo, man, oh man, y'all don't touch my stuff, nah. So he was like, yo, those are your crates right there. He was like, you can play out of those. And if I say you're good enough, then you can play out of here. But don't be touching my, because I mean, the records. But the crates that he gave us to spin out of were what we called the octopus breaks. And those were the songs that the rappers would use or DJs would use when it was time for the rappers to rap at all these parties. So songs like, Billy Squire's The Big Beat, um, I Can't Stop, the breaks were what I learned how to spin on. And I mean, that, like I said, that totally transformed my life. So yeah, about the age of 13 was when it clicked for me.
Oh, that's dope.
Technique 1200s.
No, we had D2s.
D2.
Yeah, Techniques SLD2s was what I learned. Actually, I started on the Technique B2s, which were the belt drive versions, large, it was a tall platter. And then we went from the B2s to the D2s. And then when I finally got a set, it was some straight arm belt drives because I couldn't afford those. It was the SLBD2s, and I learned how to do everything on those. And that was like fighting. That was definitely a pulling teeth exercise because the turntables that I had were, they didn't have a great platter. It was a thin platter. It was a belt-driven turntable, so the second you stop the platter, you got to get that ramp up, and then the music starts, and everything starts to sound like it's supposed to again. So we had to learn the light touch. Um, there wasn't a whole lot of different scratches at that time. I mean, we're talking 84, 85.
Okay.
So it was, and I really didn't have a mentor outside of my man's brother. Um, Jason and his brother they were my teachers, but it was really about more self study. So, by the time I got 12s, I was a grown man, with a job.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Understood.
Yeah.
Ain't nothing wrong with that. You
No.
know,
No,
a
way
lot
up.
of stuff. As you get older, you're like, okay,
Right.
but
Now
you
you pick up
still,
the-
but you still invested in yourself.
Oh yeah.
Mm.
Oh yeah.
That's
Totally.
that's the thing. I think a lot of youngsters don't understand.
Mhm.
They don't want to invest in themselves.
Well, that's honestly speaking, we aren't really taught entrepreneurship. We don't understand. We I know I grew up thinking that talent was your investment, and it's not. Talent is a part of what's going to give you longevity because you have to be able to connect with an audience. But um, you know, talent is not what gets you there. It's business savvy. The business savvy is what sets you apart from other artists. So it's like you got to learn business, and when you have really no examples of business, what do you do? You know what I mean? I'm not trying to say that. I'm not trying to sit here and make excuses for folks, but you know, we learn things by trial and error.
True.
There wasn't there was no Massey School of Business that I could go to when we were when we were opening up the record store. Jazz was a business major, I believe, while he was in college. So we kind of leaned on that. Everything else was just figuring it out as we went along. Oh, we got to order records. Okay, everything has to be in by Thursday so that we can have the records here by Friday. So when the DJs come in, they got something to pull from so we can maintain our business. Oh, now it's corporate taxes and that has to be paid that's paid quarterly. And, it was just a lot of stuff that went along with it that I wasn't even thinking about half that stuff. I was just like, yeah, okay, you say I got to have a business license. All right.
Yeah.
I got a business license. What now?
Right,
You know what I
right.
mean? So, again, it's one of those things we as we know more, we are responsible for what we know now. And how do we share this information with those that are coming up after us so they don't have as hard a time getting through these things as we did, you know?
Yeah, I agree with you. Cause like you were just saying, we all had to find out the hard way. But
Mhm.
as we get older, we don't want the younger generation, but sometimes that younger generation. don't
Well, I
wanna
mean, I'm
listen.
not going to say they shouldn't bump their head. You know what I mean? It's a part of it.
Let them go through it. So they
Right,
can
but the thing
learn
is,
a
it's
little
like us.
bit.
I got 4 sons. And I tell my boys like, hey, man, look, learn from my mistakes. It's okay for you to make mistakes as long as the mistakes that you're making are yours. If you're doing the same thing that I was doing, thinking that you're going to get a different result, you're not. That you don't need to do this thing. Try something else. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, your mistake shouldn't be anywhere near what I was doing. You know.
Yeah.
Got too much technology out here.
Man, come on. And the sum of all knowledge in our fingertips.
Come on, man. Right.
It's crazy.
The world in our hands, literally.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So, for his trades, I like how you said you started off, uh, doing the electrician and things of that nature, being an entrepreneur and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
I think it's important for the younger generation to have a trade now as well, despite having other things, because with trades like electrician, plumbers,
Mhm.
and that nature. That helps. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
A lot.
man. I mean, there's something that you can do that nobody can take away from you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a skill that you can use no matter where you go. When I went to Kenya as like a graduation present for myself.
Mm.
Well, really, I went to Amsterdam and then wound up getting
Woo.
to Kenya because it was, it's you're on
Right,
that
right,
side.
right. Mm-hmm.
And I'm seeing folks there, wiring up houses and on doing
Mm.
roofing and stuff. So these are, if you have a trade like that, again, where can you go that you can't be of help to somebody and yourself? You know
Right.
what I mean? So yeah, it's something that I definitely encourage. I got my son going to the school now, who's in the automotive program. Because I'm like, look, man, come on, cars are not going away. Robots are not going to be able to fix your car. AI can tell you what's wrong, but AI is not going to screw a screw.
Yep.
You know
I
what I
agree
mean?
with you.
So, no, let's be real about this, man. And then if you find yourself wanting to do something else, you'll have some money that you can do that with.
Man, that part.
That's the key,
That
you
part.
know?
I think a lot of folks look at trades as they think it's just a hard and dirty job when it's you gonna get a little dirty.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you sit back and your counterpart that went and got a 4-year degree and that electrician pay bank account is here and they're still here.
Right, exactly.
They're like, hey,
Yeah,
where I went wrong?
is
Oh, I
right,
got a little
exactly.
dirty.
Well, you gotta
I got a little
right.
dust in my eye.
Right, right, right.
Well, when you get that, when you get,
Right, right.
yeah, because we're led to believe that that wasn't cool.
Yeah.
We're trying to get paid, and getting paid meant something else. But when you really look at it, you know, uh, the peace of mind that comes from just doing a good day's work and being compensated well for it, means everything. All
Yeah.
that flashy extra stuff that, we kind of get caught up in, it winds up really not meaning anything,
Mm.
you know. So, but, again, guys don't, we're men. We don't discover these things
Yeah.
until we're 40.
Right, right, right.
You
Uh,
know?
I had a classmate. I'm gonna give a shout out. His name Carlos Simmons.
Okay.
So we had to be about 10th grade or whatever, man. He was he had already knew about HVAC,
Mm,
plumbing,
wow.
electrician, all this, and we used to be like, man, Bookman, we got a job, you know what I'm saying? We used to joke on him, but we were really the jokes.
Y'all call him Book, man.
Yeah, he called a book because he could fix anything, right?
Right, booger butt.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's what, he kind of looked like. But shout out to Carlo, man. But man, he had his own vehicle while we at the bus stop waiting to go on get
Right.
to school. So like what you're saying is definitely important, man. And
Yeah.
he still run a successful business right now in
Hey,
Hattiesburg,
man,
Mississippi.
and that's the thing, man.
Mm.
I mean, even like when we're talking to the students,
Mm.
it's the one thing I learned by first coming into the electrical field um, was that the world of subcontractors is really where we need to be. I
Mm.
was working for a temp agency because I really didn't know where I wanted to go with this. I liked
Mm.
audio visual, but I didn't really know that AV was going to become this big trade like it is right now.
Mm.
I had no idea just from tinkering around with speakers and TVs and stuff. So went to work for a temp agency. My first job was hanging security cameras at a parking deck that they were putting at the airport, and I'm talking to the guy who's hired me. It was just one guy who was in from Nashville, and he was hired just to do these cameras. So as we're pulling up to the security desk, the security gate to get into the construction site, excuse me, he's like, he starts saying what company he's with. The security guard doesn't see the company. After naming like 4 or 5 different companies, he's like, okay, I got you now. And I'm like, okay, wait a second. He's paying me $18, and I'm getting paid $18 to be here per hour, which means he's probably paid the temp service, somewhere between, um, you know, temp service probably took $10 from me, so they're making 28. He's got enough to come into town, pay that fee, and still make money for what he's doing, and he's this far down on the totem pole. You know what I mean? He was making enough money to come in from Nashville to do the job, to stay in Atlanta at in a hotel near the airport.
Oh yes.
So I'm like, and he's 5 companies down from wherever this company was who hired him. Plus, and they are not the GC. So I'm sitting there like, well, how much is this guy making if he can pay me? And then how much of the guy who hired him, and I'm looking at the money breakdown, and I know, because, I've owned a business before. I know what having to do payroll is like, and I'm like, oh.
light bulb.
Right, exactly. So it's like, okay, now I'm seeing things. So that's like one of the first things I even talk about in the class. If I've got a beginner, if I've got a first time students, the first class, the 101 class. Oh no, I'm telling them, I'm like, yeah, look, I know that we're here. You got sold a dream that you could make this much money and come in and learn this and become a technician. But I'm telling you right now, a technician is not where you want to stop. If why are you spending $40,000 if you want to stop at being a technician? Why? Think bigger. You gotta think bigger. One of my main mentors, guy brother by the name of Wayne Watts, sleep in peace, Wayne, just passed away earlier this year, man. But this brother in Gadsden, Alabama, told me, man, you gotta think bigger. Whatever it is, man, that's whatever your thought process right now is too small. You should be thinking bigger. And as he took me around Gadsden, Alabama, and showed me the properties that he owned and what he was doing with the properties, and then he showed me his office, and his office was an old bank, and I'm looking at the vaults, and he's turning vaults into offices, and I'm just sitting there like, yo. Then he takes me by his parents' house, and his parents got a house that was built into the mountain. And they got an elevator that goes from the garage into the main part of the house. And I'm like, yeah, I need to be thinking bigger.
Man, Lake Barnell.
You know what I mean? I'm not sure what that is, but I mean, that's like, yo, again, it's, but this is what we aren't doing. We as melanated peoples who live off of the earth we don't put the kind of importance in these things that our non-melanated people, brothers and sisters, do, because they understand, that it's a difference in the nature of the people that we're talking about. But if we are going to be here in this capitalist world, I'm not saying that we need to adopt the capitalist mentality, but we need to understand what the capitalist mentality is so that we can survive within it. Because it's not going away anytime soon.
True.
You know what I mean? It's here. This is part of the system that we are now a part of. So, you'd be crazy not to.
Right.
And again, it goes back to what we were saying before. Just how do we think business? How do we wrap our heads around doing more than we're doing now? How do we establish a sense of community? How do we, reach the people who are so-called unreachable? You know what I mean? It's all of these things that we have to look at. I mean, we're adults now. We are the ones who are responsible for this stuff because, it's if we're not going to do it, then who? You know what I mean? So,
but it come back to like what you were saying, educating. We have to continue to, like with me, I know the struggles that I had to overcome growing up.
Yeah.
And then you don't want nobody else to go down that path. So
Mhm.
you find yourself like at the schoolhouse. I sit there and look at some of these youngsters, and you can see all day he still want to be on that block. He still want to. So you pull them to the side and you try to educate them. Look, man, and I had to tell one a couple of weeks ago. I said, man, this God telling me to tell you this. Stay off that block. I said, you a very smart kid.
Yeah.
I said, because I said, you have your head on halfway. I said, because you in class. But I said, as soon as you leave here, I said, what you do? I said, you run back to that block.
Right.
I said, he said, well, I ain't doing that. I'm just hanging out with my homies.
Yeah.
I said, that bullet ain't got nobody name on it.
True that.
I said, yo, while you at school, your homeboy could be over there cutting up and acting a fool. Somebody come back and shoot up the whole block.
Yeah.
I said, you want to die for some foolishness somebody else did? I said, so we have to constantly encourage these kids, hey, look here, you're on the right path. Stay on this path. And we all know that it's sometimes, like, hey, how am I eat?
Right.
Hey, I'm sitting over here watching my mama struggle. I said, man, sometimes you're going to have to get out there and work 2-3 jobs to make sure everything is straight. I said, because that easy money comes with a death certificate.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There's a consequence. And for every action there is a reaction.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, I feel you, man.
I have a question kind of for both of y'all. So both of y'all having trades, like, because they have a lot of skills. Of course, you got the skills. During COVID, did y'all see a spike in requesting people, asking for people like y'all engineers for like audio engineering and things of that nature? Because of everything going down and nobody really know, like churches having to go online, businesses have to go online, people have to work from home, the ITs and things of that nature. Did you see like a influx of that or question?
Church wise, I did because I was working at the church. So if the church didn't have streaming, we had to do post production. So I had the church I worked at, they didn't have no streaming platform. And because when I first took over, I said, hey, y'all ain't streaming. He said, well, we want to go that route. And a week later, shut down. And they was like, what we gonna do? So then we tried the streaming first, but they didn't have the equipment. So then we were like, okay, post-production. The church I worked at the time had a Behringer, an X32. So you could hook your laptop with Pro Tools up. You can sync all that together. And that's what I did. I brought my laptop in with my Pro Tools on there, and we did. It was just like a big production. We had lights set up in the sanctuary. If you would have came in the sanctuary, you would have thought it was a movie set.
TV set,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so after that, it just like, that's when a lot, because once the church opened back up, the church didn't want folks to come in, so we had to take everything outside and set up. So we had tents. When I'm talking about, we had scalpels, had the camera up on the scalpel, here a camera on this scalpel, pointing down. We had a tent where you had the camera operator. I'm here mixing the show. I mean, it was everything. So I would say yes, because even then, what a lot of churches start doing, they start renovating. So renovating, you got that audio engineer, you got Shabazz and them coming in there, running all the wires. I mean, that's when I ran in the Champion.
Okay.
And then that's Austin. So then when me and Austin was talking, he's like, man, you do music? I said, yeah. And that's when I said, when I brought up Maddie's name, he was like, oh, Maddie, brother date my sister. and that's how me and Austin became cool. But it's one of those things, it was a high demand, because even when some of the studios were shut down, a lot of folks were still coming over here recording.
Yeah. For me, it was just the realization that I'm on the right path. Because with everybody having to work from home now people are realizing what their limitations are. you know. So the right as COVID was, as things had started, because Georgia was early opening up
Shit,
again.
I don't think Georgia
So
shut down.
yeah, not
Hey, I
really,
don't think they shut
not
down.
really, not really. But yeah. So as things were starting, networking now is more important. People are realizing, oh no, I don't have enough bandwidth at home to do, the streaming and online school and work from home and Microsoft meetings. So that was for me. It was just a sign, like, yeah, this is you on the right path
Mhm,
because as soon as I got my degree, I was up and running.
mhm. Gotcha. Oh, that makes a lot of sense. I always thought about that because I'm like, man, people don't realize having a trade is definitely,
Man, it's everything, man.
it's
It's
almost recession
everything.
proof, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like transportation, things of that nature. Like,
Hmm.
so kids, make sure y'all go get y'all some kind of trade. No matter what
Yeah.
else you do.
Sure, for sure.
Yeah.
Because electrical issues still was happening.
Yeah.
Oh
Somebody had to
yes.
come out there and fix those electrical issues, and then on top of that, is more not even just electrical. You got plumbing,
Yeah.
Well,
mechanics.
I mean, think about how much you were really in the house before COVID.
mm, it's
You
true.
know, I
Yeah.
I can tell you for somebody like me, I was never in the house. I would be home long enough to to do my three S's: shit,
Yeah, shower.
shower, and shave,
Right. Same
sleep
here.
and sleep.
Right.
And then get up and I'm out the house again doing it.
Hmm.
So for me to actually be home and stationary, oh man, it was at first it was like,
Feel
no,
like
this is
this.
terrible. But
Feel
then
like
it
this.
was like, oh man, this is great.
Hey.
I can't wait for the
Hey.
next pandemic to come. Shoot, man, when are you going to have, because I mean honestly, we live our lives, so hectic. When do you have the kind of time where you can just sit back and do nothing or, do
Right.
something for you because
Yeah.
you're not having to do something for everyone else in the world. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right. Right.
Yeah, no, I'm like I said, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
I don't want the sickness to come from
Right.
it, but I'm definitely like, man, if we had to stay at home again for a couple months, I wouldn't be mad.
Nah,
Plus, my house is set up
Shut
now,
up.
so I can do that.
So let me ask this question here. So I know we were talking about electrical.
Mm,
So as go back to when you're in Queens,
mhm,
as you in Queens 13, you start mixing and you found your love for being a DJ.
mhm.
And as you found that love and as you honed those skills, what made you bring that journey down to Atlanta?
Um, because at that point it was just a part of me. We moved to Atlanta. I started spinning at the age of 12. By 16, I was living here in Atlanta.
Okay.
So it was just I still had visions of grandeur. I still thought that at some point I was going to be some kind of recording artist or on the road doing this, you know, big production kind of thing. And but I was also being introduced to the behind the scenes stuff at the same time. Here in Atlanta, the school that I went to was Northside, which was the School of the Performing Arts. And in addition to us having a singing and dance crew, that would go out and do all these corporate functions, we also had a tech crew that would
Right.
be the ones who were running the sound and the lights and the music, getting the stage up, stage managing. So um, I got bitten all over again. It wasn't so much at that point. It wasn't so much about being the one who's being seen. It was really about just I fell in love with the industry, you know, with the world of production. So that after graduating, I graduated in '87. Summer of '88, I went to work at Six Flags in the shows department. Um, I worked at the Crystal Pistol. I don't know if anybody's ever even watched any of those shows at Six Flags. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's the old. It looks like an old Victorian style plantation house right there
Surely know what it is.
right there by the by Bugs Bunny and them.
Okay.
You know, by the animated characters. And I would also fill in. So when I filled in a couple of times and doing characters, so I was Foghorn Leghorn,
Okay.
walking around the park and
Big
you know,
chicken.
right, exactly, exactly, man. But I was also at that time, Six Flags had a teen nightclub that they treated like a ride. It was called Graffitis. And it was, you know, basically on like a 15, 20-minute rotation. So, you know, they let a certain amount of kids in. You had to be under 21. They let a certain amount of kids in. You'd stay there for a while, party. And then, you know, they'd exit them out and bring the next wave in. And, you know, I was DJing there. And that was, you know, summer of 88. That was like an eye-opening experience because again, it's how do we relate to people in this short window? And, you know, me being from New York, you know, still, you know, I still hadn't gotten rid of all of that arrogant New Yorker, you know, and I'm still trying to do things the way I want to do them. And it was like, that's not working. You know, we need to maintain this energy. And again, it just taught me a lot. Taught me a lot about the craft because you have to look at who's coming. You have to be able to learn how to read a room and see what these people are needing at that particular moment to keep them engaged. Because if they were not, you know, we're talking, you know, people that are under 21. And, you know, for Atlanta, folks would literally get a season's pass and go hang out at graffitis all day. You know what I mean? That was what you did if you weren't working.
Like a preteen club.
It was literally, it was a preteen club. You'd ride some rides, you'd go to hang out in graffitis for a couple hours, and then you'd hop on the MARTA bus and go home. You know, so you know, it was again, it was an outreach, and you know, it was just another indicator, I guess, that you know, as a DJ, the way I kind of, if you ask me how I define spinning records, you know, what is DJing? I'd say that it's playing what you want people to hear in a manner that's most pleasing to them. Yeah, because you're still in control. It's still about what you're doing. But if what you're doing does not gel with what they want to do, then there's a mismatch. There's a disconnect, you know. So and it opened my playlist up as well because now, you know, this is 88, so I'm playing stuff like In Excess. I didn't, you know, not saying that I didn't like the music, but I was now being groups like ABC, you know, Be Near Me, songs like that, you know, pop stuff that I wouldn't necessarily have in my crates because it's not who I really played to on a normal basis. You know what I mean? It was I had to learn something else because it was white kids, it was Latinos, it was brothers, you know, and we all in this one spot for 20 minutes shaking. So they got to keep it, you know, so it was about that booty shake. It was about that bass. You know, we were playing a lot of Debbie Deb and, you know, Mars, Pump Up the Volume, and you know what I mean? It was stuff like that. Exactly. A little snap in the house because, again, it was about keeping people's attention because what would happen is that these 16 and 17-year-olds, if the music wasn't talking to them, they start fighting.
That part.
So we couldn't have them fighting. We had we had to keep them engaged.
You gotta keep them dancing.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what's up.
That's good. That's good. So as far as working in, so you transition, you had to open up the record store.
Yeah.
Earwax. So the reason why I want to bring that up because I like how what people are going back to now. I'm watching Cardi B roll out. Like she doing in
right
store
with vinyl.
With
yes,
vinyl. Like
yes.
like people say tapes and vinyl went out of style a couple of years ago, but
Mhm.
it hasn't. It never went out of style. It was
Right.
always here, but the collectors always. I say that because have you ever did in stores like
Hmm.
signings
Oh yeah.
and can you name a couple people who actually came through?
Outcast.
Wow.
We did a midnight sale for um, not Equimini. What was the one that came? Stankonia.
Whoa,
We
okay,
did a
that's
midnight
good.
sale for that. We did a midnight sale with Red Man and Method Man when they
Dope.
dropped their when they dropped their album.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, we had Earwax was on the corner of 11th Street and Peachtree Street, and right there near Piedmont Park.
Okay.
So, um, you know, it was one of them places. If you were in town, you're on Peachtree Street. You know,
Yeah.
so if you're on Peachtree Street, at some
Yeah.
point, you're gonna run into us.
Yeah. Okay.
And it became the store became one of those places where it was really more of a community center
Gotcha.
as much as it was a record store,
Mm.
um, because there was no internet.
Okay.
If you wanted to know what was happening, you had to find places or people that knew,
Mm.
and the record store was that kind of source.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So, if you're from out of town, you don't really know anything about Atlanta. Really, only thing you know is Peachtree Street downtown.
Mm.
So you come up on us, and it's like, oh my God! And you walk in, you're like, oh man, this reminds me of
Where you
wherever I was from,
from?
because every place had a place like that.
Mom's a pop store.
Exactly.
Mm.
So people from Chicago felt like we were like Georges.
Yeah.
You know, people who were from the West Coast. Oh man, this makes me feel like Amoeba,
Yeah.
or you know what I
Yeah.
mean. All these other stores. And for me, it was Earwax was what I saw growing up, being a young DJ, going to all the record stores, spending my money.
Mhm.
So we were a little bit of the music factory, as well as we were a little bit of rock and soul, as well a little bit of downstairs records.
Gotcha.
That's the those were the things that I saw growing up, and so those are the things that I made sure that were expressed in what I was doing. And fortunately, that resonated with a lot of the other people,
Mm.
plus the fact that I was on the radio at the time, so the stuff that I'm playing, now there's a place where you can get the things that you heard on my show. So that was like, oh man,
That's
because again, we weren't just playing um New York stuff, we weren't just playing down south stuff. Our playlist was everywhere.
mm,
you know
mm,
so it was just, like I said, really, it was perfect time. It was the
yeah.
perfect storm of
Yeah.
everything,
Yeah.
at
Yes,
that
sir.
time.
And that was a good era too.
Man,
Like
come on,
yeah.
man. 90s. So
Yeah, it's a
yeah,
good
so
era. Yeah.
but I can tell you there was one time, I was not privy to the setup of it. So I get to work one day and my partner Jazz is there and we're talking and everything. And then I see this big tour bus, come up. And the way that our store was set up was, the parking lot was like directly in front.
Mm.
We had a couple of spaces in the front where you could park. And the bus kind of just pulls up into our driveway. And I'm looking, and I'm like, hey Jazz, we supposed to have somebody here today? He was like, yeah, Easy E is supposed to come in, but you
What?
know, and he was like, but he was supposed to be here like 2 hours ago. So this guy, big hokey white guy, gets off the bus, and right behind him is Easy E, and I'm
God
like,
damn.
oh snap! So, but again, he
That's
comes in
crazy.
and he seems like he's looking around. It seemed like he had a little bit of an attitude, and Jazz was like, he went to sign something for Jazz, and Jazz was like, look, man, I don't give a fuck. Who you are, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But these folks been waiting here to see you, man.
That's
So what you
do
gonna
you
do?
do? Right.
And he kind of, he was like, yo, man, he was very personable, signing everybody's pictures. I mean, yo, man, Easy was cool. Easy
No,
was a
that's
cool
dope.
dude.
That's a big one.
And we've had stuff like that. Bun B used to come into the store all the time
Dope.
whenever he was in town. I mean, this was one of those places. My partner Jazz is from Brooklyn, And I know you said you know some Brooklyn cats.
Mhm.
Brooklyn folks are totally unfazed.
Right.
You know, ain't
Yeah,
no
I
such
like
thing as celebrity about
No.
somebody from Brooklyn. So
Yes.
Jazz is a Brooklyn guy. So,
Okay.
you know, it's like we were one of those places where people could be who they were and not worry about whether we would be the fanboy on them.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? So like David Banner when he had dropped
Oh.
this joint with Little Flip, like a
pimp.
pimp. He would be in the store every week, and I'm like, Dave, come on, I need some more records, man. I need some more 12 inches. And he'd come and he'd sit there for hours and talk to folks. You
Yeah.
know,
Still like that.
I mean,
Still.
yeah, man. I mean, and he still remembers one of the few that still shows a little respect to the memory of those who, you know, were instrumental in helping him become who he became. You know, and that's the whole thing. I mean, that it was I will say this, without the record store, we don't have the same kind of scene that we once had because the store was the clearinghouse. That was the proving ground. That was the place that you went not only to, you know, move your product, but also connect with people.
Yeah. Right.
And, you know, with that not being a part of our community, you know, we've lost a solid piece of the community in terms of who that made us who we were. You know what I mean? Because you know, my mother had the same experiences growing up in the record store that I did. You know, my sons, you know, well, two out of the three actually made it to the store. You know what I mean? Excuse me, two out of the four made it to the store. But you know, they don't have that. There is no place that's really replaced that in our community.
Gotcha.
You know.
I think they trying to come back.
That's why,
Cause
yeah.
you got Crates, ATL.
Yeah.
They got one over there in Little 5 Point, and then
Yeah.
they got
Criminal Records.
Criminal
Yeah.
Records, yeah. Criminal was around when
DBS
we were there.
Sounds.
DBS was part of our. We were in a coalition, a record store coalition, and DBS was one of our partners. But yeah, I mean, there's still a few diehards, and I love the fact that people are now realizing that there is still some sense of worth when it comes to having a physical piece of product. You know.
So I don't mean to cut you off.
Yeah.
So it's a coffee shop called
Mhm.
Stereo.
Okay.
You
I've
go
not
in
heard
there,
of it. No.
It's called Stereo. So once you go in there, it's a coffee shop.
Hmm.
They got a live DJ and they're mixing,
Okay.
and they sell records.
Damn. Where's this at?
It's over. So you know the MARTA train that'll take you all the way to the stadium.
Yeah.
It's that road. I don't know the name of that road. Sherilyn, what's the name of that road? So it's matter of fact, it's called Stereo. It's
Okay.
it's right there. Little nice little spot. They on the weekends they close at 3:00, then come back open at 7 till midnight.
Okay.
So that's why I bought that Nina Simone record. So that
Okay.
Nina Simone record up there,
Uh-huh.
that's where I had got it.
DeKalb Avenue? Okay.
So
okay.
it's a dope little spot.
Yeah.
I mean, you go through the records, and I'm talking about they have all genres in there. And when I went that time, I went. I had to go meet Mike Miller up there, and
Schneider.
hey, it was a dope experience. I said,
Okay.
wow. I said,
Yeah.
I never knew this was over here.
Yeah, JB's is a little bit like that too. You know, JB's records over in the West End.
Okay.
He's got a nice little loungy type
I
setup.
met him.
Okay.
I met them at
I told-
Juneteenth
Yo, I
festival.
told you, right, yeah,
That's
because
where I met
they
him.
were
Yeah.
over in the park.
Yeah, that's where I met
Right,
him.
yeah.
I met him because he had they had their records out there, and then I was like, oh man, because you know they were playing some dope music. I said,
Right,
man, where
right.
y'all located? He said, oh man, we on the West End.
Yeah.
And then he gave me a fly. I
Okay.
exactly know where it's
Yeah, I
at.
told JB he's missing his calling because his voice is perfect for radio, man. He's Jonathan, you know, he's got that, he's got that little gravel kind of
Golden
thing. I
voice.
was like, yeah, man, you need to be doing some kind of voiceovers or something, man.
But man, the whole time we've been talking, and when you said Earwax Record Store, I keep saying, I said, man, I used to hear this all the time back in the days. They did interviews. You was in the Source magazine, wasn't you? I knew it. I kept on. I said, I know this from somewhere. And I said, I said, is this the article they had about your record store in the Source magazine back
Yeah,
in the day?
we've been written up quite a few times. I mean, it was when at the height of our run. I mean, it would be nothing for record for news people to come in, and if something happened in the entertainment industry, they would come to us for a quote.
Oh,
You know,
Lord.
there was I've been personally quoted in the Atlanta Journal Constitution when Easy passed away. Um, I did Emerge magazine. There was an article where they were talking about R. Kelly, and they needed an opinion about R. Kelly. Unfortunately, I was the America's Most Wanted came in. There was a partner of mine who was an MC, was doing all the little open mics and stuff. I didn't realize he was on the run, and then and yeah, that was a very important lesson for me to learn on that one, because America's Most Wanted came in. We had a DJ booth in the store. They were finishing up their segment, and they were like, "Hey, this would be great if we filmed in here." And so, so we allowed them to film, and then come to find out, not only did I, know of the case, this was somebody that I considered to be, one of those cool dudes on the scene. I wouldn't really say he was a friend because I didn't know him like that, but at the same time, he was definitely somebody I saw on a regular basis, and I was just like, oh man, I got to really watch what we do. You know what I mean? Because you never know. So then that looked terrible for me. You know what I mean? Because if you're seeing me as part of this thing and they're talking about the case, and I'm like,
Bad publicity.
bad luck, bad luck. But again, it's all kind of learning lessons, man. We again, it's trial and error. I didn't know, but I learned on that one to start asking better questions. You know what I mean? But yeah, we've had a lot of folks come through those doors, man.
Yeah, your name carry a lot. Looked at you, man. I said, man, you know a lot of people.
Yeah, did you start to look at some of the pictures
Man,
on the?
I was in the light. I like, wow.
Yeah, look, it's funny how one thing kind of leads into another. You know, um, from being a Georgia State student in the commercial music and recording program that they had at that time, um, I got to the campus. From being on the campus, I was able to get onto the radio station, having the radio show going, and then being familiar with all of these record people who were coming by the show dropping off product. We got the store up and running and respected in a short amount of time. um, from there, people would call me and say, hey, you're on the radio, you got a record store, can you take these records around for me, to a couple of other other stores and stuff. And that wound up becoming the street promotions. So it's always, I it's a matter of being in the right place at the right time and open to the opportunities that present themselves. I don't think I ever told anybody no, when they would ask me stuff. Oh, can you do this? I don't think I've ever said no.
Right.
I may have said, well, I'm not 100% sure what you're looking for, so, let's try and figure it out. But, if somebody brought an opportunity to me, if it made, if it halfway made sense, it would be like, okay, well, shit, let's try and run with it, see what we can do. You know what I mean? And that kind of attitude has always landed me in these places, like even where I'm at now, same thing. I wouldn't have, I, I liked my professors, my instructors when I was going to school. Me staying in touch with my instructor wound up leading to me being able to teach at the school. So, again, if you set yourself up, opportunities will present themselves.
Yes.
Always. You
Yes,
know what I
sir.
mean? Sometimes you might have to do more to make the opportunity happen. Sometimes you just kind of fall into it. But at the same time, if you've done the work, the rewards are gonna come. You know what I mean? So you just got to be able to tune into it.
Man, that's powerful.
It
Wow,
is.
man.
So
I got a lot of key points, takeaways. The trade,
hmm
the networking,
yeah.
maximizing your network.
Oh man, it's
Just going,
everything.
yeah.
It's
So
everything.
stuff that we know, it's just good to hear it again and
Mhm.
know that it has helped you along your longevity.
Hey man, yeah, man. Again, it's do you learn from these lessons or do you not learn from them?
Mhm.
If you don't learn from them, you're doomed to repeat them. You know,
Yeah.
one of the things that I had to learn too is that um, just because this person means this to you in your life doesn't mean you necessarily mean the same thing to them in their life.
True.
You
I
know,
agree with you.
I used to, like everything else, if you know a lot of people and people are doing stuff and getting on, you figure that folks will look out for you in the same manner that you would look out for them. You know, when people would see us coming, me and my partners, they knew a check was going to be coming with it. So we were always able to get stuff done.
Mhm.
When that kind of dries up, you know, it's like, okay, well, do these people still take your phone call?
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, you may have DJ'd, you may have spun Jermaine Dupri's Sweet 16 birthday party, but that doesn't necessarily mean that Jermaine's going to call you when he's got something else going on 20 years later. You know what I mean? So we have to realize that I think that one of the things that I've had to kind of come to terms with is that, you know, I'm not necessarily thought about in the same, um, with the same amount of importance, I guess, or, you know, people don't hold me as important in their life as I hold them in mine. And I've had to learn how to be comfortable with that because this is still my journey and this is still my path. You may have just been, I may have looked at it, it's like relationships. You think that, you get with a chick and you're like, oh man, this is the greatest thing ever. And then, she cheats on you. You're like, oh, you wasn't so great after all, but it was good while you was there. So just enjoy the fact that y'all had that time together and learn the lesson from it. You know
Hey,
what I mean?
hey, you preaching right now.
Preaching.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just like, I'm
No,
just
no,
like
no,
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 in
no,
a
no,
good
no,
way.
no, no,
In a
no,
good
no.
way.
That was good.
That's some more
but
gems.
that's the funny thing too is now being in school, working with folks that are not your age. Is how do you relate to them? What kind of stories am I going to tell? How am I going to tell these stories, or just how do I express what I want to get across to them in a manner that they're going to understand it?
Mhm.
And I guess that's kind of the DJ relate story as well, is because I can play the most fire song in the world right now, but if you weren't feeling it, you're not going to get on my dance floor. If you're not getting on my dance floor, it looks like I'm not doing my job,
Right.
regardless of how many people are nodding their head in the club. You know what I mean?
And
So
that's the
it's just
DJ
about
quote.
relating.
That's some of the DJ quotes I heard back in the day. They say good DJs play the music that you like, and the great DJs play the music that you didn't know you wanted to hear.
Right.
So
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
So let me ask you a question. As all the knowledge that you have and everything that you have experienced, would you do it all over again?
hmm
Good.
And would you do it so as you see a lot of folks is getting back into buying records
hmm
because you see I was in a mall yesterday. I
Right.
seen record players everywhere, and I know folks got record players so they could just sit there and just to listen to they music, not DJing, but
Right.
just to, like you had the record store. Would you open another one?
Hell
Would you?
yeah, I wouldn't do. It's funny. My partner Jazz and I, we've got we did a 50th anniversary of hip hop exhibit, museum style exhibit, where we took, just a lot of the memorabilia we had collected
That
over
was
the
at the
years.
underground.
No,
Oh.
that was Dallas's thing.
Okay.
It's so funny because we were planning ours at the same time that Dallas just decided to do it. So we wound up, not really competing because it's not a competition. It's who's got artifacts. Everybody, you should want to see what's over here, just like you should want to see what's here. But we, damn, where was I going with that? I brought that up to. What was your question again, Jarrell?
Would you ever do?
Yeah.
Pop-ups.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And
I
then when
would.
you was talking about how you and Jazz did y'all 50th
Yeah.
celebration.
And we were. It was, how do we bring back that feeling? You know what I mean? Like, there were so many things that we did that we could have done different. So we never really sold as a record store that sold used vinyl. We would buy people's collections, clean them up, and resell them. So we had guys who would come and shop with us from Japan, from the UK. You know what I mean? We had these these two Japanese guys. They were record collectors, and they would come over and they would just sit in our back room for hours upon hours, and pull out stuff. So yeah, I would do it. I wouldn't change a thing. I might make some subtle improvements knowing what I know now. Like, we would have gotten into selling equipment,
Yeah.
because we were a record store that sold secondhand vinyl. So who's buying that? DJs and producers. So yeah, I would have probably wanted to move us more into the equipment or the gear, sector. Um, I would have taken advantage of some of the groupies that the store provided. in a much better manner than I actually did. At one point it was really just, oh man, we got fans, but I'm like, shoot, man, if we had fans, if knowing what I know now, I wouldn't have had fans. I would have had an army. You
Yeah.
understand what I mean?
I feel you.
So things I would like to improve on, but I mean, I don't have regrets, man. I lived my life the way I wanted to. And, there were some things that I would do differently, in hindsight, especially like when it comes to the kids. But, I had a great life, man. I wouldn't change. There's not too much I would change.
That's dope, man. Man, I know you got a million things you can tell us, and I know you got a lot of knowledge, a lot of memories. And I know I definitely I enjoyed this. I want you looking at camera and tell them where they can find you at on social media.
Okay. On Instagram, it's at El Shabazz 7, ELSHAB like boy, AZZ like zebra. El Shabazz 7 on IG, on and on Threads, it's El Shabazz 7. On Twitter, whatever they're called,
X.
yeah, X. It's just El Shabazz, ELSHABAZZ. On Facebook's, it's my real name, Talib Shabazz. Yeah, on YouTube too. On YouTube as well, Talib Shabazz.
Man, listen, we appreciate you stopping by the Tailor Talk
Man,
podcast.
it's all good.
We enjoyed every minute of it and all the gems you dropped.
Cool. I
Listen,
appreciate
man,
it.
thank you again, man.
Yeah, for sure, Chevy.
Hey, Ken
Mr.
Folk.
Durrell, appreciate you, twin.
Man, thank you,
Yeah.
man. I trust me.
Yeah. It's been an honor.
It would be an honor to have you back again.
Look, man, I'm telling you, anytime.
Yeah.
Next time, next time we'll tell some we'll give you some of those drink champ stories.
That was, That's part 2 on the way.
Right, exactly.
Ken Folk, what else they need to do?
Hey, thank y'all for tuning in to Tailor Talk Podcast. I'd like y'all to go out there, subscribe, like, and share. See y'all next time.